Our reflections today on February 24th, the seventh Sunday and Ordinary Time, come from the book of the prophet Samuel, Paul's letters to the Corinthians, and our gospel from the Gospel of Luke. In our first reading from the book of the prophet Samuel, Samuel, we know from our history of the Hebrew tradition, anoints Saul as the first king of Israel. Saul in the beginning was a decent leader. He protected his people against the enemies who were the Philistines. But he becomes obsessed over his political rival, David. He is seeking him out to kill him. In our reading today, Saul and his soldiers go to sleep in a cave. It just happens to be the cave where David is hiding. A quick sword to the heart would have put an end to sleeping Saul and David's worries. But David instead respects the office of the king, if not the man himself who was out to kill him. He believes that God has anointed Saul as king of Israel. So he spares his life. As Saul and his men are sleeping, David takes his staff and takes his spear that is planted next to his head. But he takes it as a sign that he has had mercy on Saul. He could have as easily put him to death. When Saul was in the cave later on, we hear another story when he is relieving himself in the cave. Once again, it's a cave in which David is hiding. And David comes up behind him. David could have easily slit his throat, but he just cuts off a piece of his cloak to once again show that he has mercy on Saul and respects who he is as a child of God. He shows mercy. In our second reading from the letter of Paul to the Corinthians, we know that we have this image of Christ compared to Adam. Since the Middle Ages, a lot of artwork, when we depict the crucifixion, we will see at the foot of the cross a skull. And very often that skull represents the skull of Adam, the first human being from our story of Genesis. And it is there that Adam, who, like all human beings, must undergo death and face death itself. It is Christ's death on the cross and his resurrection that conquers death itself. Paul calls the Corinthians, who are struggling with death and resurrection, to this deep faith that just as Adam died, Christ, who also died, conquers even death itself. And through him, we too will have victory over death and live life eternal. In our gospel, Luke's Sermon on the Plain is compared to the more familiar Sermon on the Mount by Matthew. But it is in these sermons that Jesus gives the main discourse, the main tenets, if you will, of gospel living. He gives his followers the core of his teaching of the good news. Here we have perhaps the most difficult. Traditionally, we call it the golden rule: to do unto others as we would have others do unto us, to treat others the way we would like to be treated. When Jesus talks about this love, the love of enemies, we know in the Greek there are three words for love. The first love is eros, which is erotic love. It's a love between lovers, between spouses. We have also philia, which is a fraternal love, the love of friends, the love of family. And the love that Jesus talks about, the word is the Greek word agape. And the love of agape is the love where you wish always for the best of the other. It doesn't mean that you want to be lovey-dovey or they're going to be your best friend and you're going to go out to dinner with them. But it means that you see them also as a child of God, that you wish only the best for them. It's not based on emotions or feelings. It's an act of the will. It's a choice we must make, as David did in our readings in the first reading, when David chose not to destroy Saul, which he could have done easily. And we must, if we are to be followers of Jesus, we must walk his way. We must walk this teaching. And many walked away from Jesus because of this teaching. They said, it's too difficult. It's too hard. I cannot love and respect others who are my enemies. Jesus says this is the key to his teaching, that you love one another as I have loved you, with that agape love. Yes, many walked away. Will you?